Our protagonist feels a strange unease as she looks at the young woman sitting across from her. The girl, who seems so innocent as she chews on a piece of bread, makes her feel uncomfortable. She can't shake the thought that this seemingly harmless girl might actually be dangerous, maybe even a cold-blooded killer. The idea sticks in her mind and makes her even more unsettled. She knows deep down that she should probably call the police, but instead of acting on that thought, she finds herself hesitating. Her mind starts to imagine all sorts of terrifying scenarios, each one worse than the last. Just as she's trying to push her worries away and figure out what to do next, a man with striking purple hair walks into the room. His hair is bright and catches her eye immediately. He looks both curious and concerned, having heard the noise and commotion from outside. He takes a quick look at the situation and then explains that the young woman is named Menen. He says she's his youngest sibling, and that she has just come back after spending a whole year studying intensely. As the man's words sink in, she starts to realize that this is Menen, and she feels a bit embarrassed. She hadn't recognized her sooner, and feels awkward about the whole misunderstanding. The tension in the room eases a little, and she starts to relax, feeling a bit silly for her earlier fears. Menen, however, seems completely unfazed by the situation. She casually mentions that she's been studying hard and is now back home. Her brother, Arthur, looks a bit apologetic and explains that Menen is the most eccentric member of their family. Menen, still holding her luggage, asks if it's okay for her to stay the night. She explains that the house is the closest place to the airport, and she's feeling jet-lagged from her travels. Arthur hesitates for a moment, but tells her that they are heading out later in the evening, so she shouldn't get too comfortable. Menen nods and agrees, then heads to a guest room to rest, saying she'll catch up with everyone later. As Arthur's wife watches Menen, she thinks about how different Arthur's family is from each other. The youngest sibling definitely makes an impression. To shift the focus, she suggests they start getting ready for their son Leon's checkup. Arthur goes to fetch Leon from his room. The little boy is standing in his crib, and looks up at his mother with wide eyes as she picks him up. She notices how much he has grown and feels a surge of pride in her heart. Leon coos with delight as he reaches out his tiny hands to touch his mother's face. She smiles warmly at him and picks him up, carrying him toward the door with care. As they walk past the guest room, she takes a quick look inside and notices that Menen is already asleep. Menen's face shows how tired she must be, and it's clear she has had a long journey. Even though Menen seems quite different and unique, she feels reassured that the young woman looks friendly enough. Once they are outside and heading to the car, Arthur's wife turns to him and asks if it's really okay to leave Menen alone at the house. She's a bit concerned and wants to make sure everything will be all right. Arthur reassures her with a calm smile, saying that he has already made arrangements for some help to be around. He tells her there's no need to worry about Menen being alone, and that they can focus on getting Leon to his checkup without any distractions or concerns. As they walk together, with Leon in Arthur's arms, she remembers something Menen had said earlier. Feeling curious, she asks Arthur about it. Before she can think too much about it, Arthur explains that his family has a habit of exaggerating things about him. He says it has led to some misunderstandings in the past, but reassures her that it's all meant in good fun, and nothing more serious. They keep walking, and Arthur shares his hopes that everything will go smoothly with Leon's checkup. He understands how important it is for their son's health and feels a sense of relief knowing they are all together for this. Back at the house, Menen wakes up and picks up one of Leon's toys. She looks at it for a moment, feeling a bit disappointed with her brother. She sighs as she sets the toy down, wondering if things will ever change, and feeling unsure about the future. Back at the pediatrician's office, Arthur is looking over a file and writing notes in his book. The pediatrician asks about Leon's development and points out that Leon can walk while holding onto furniture. Arthur and his wife nod in agreement. Arthur laughs a bit, saying it feels like they are taking an exam since the pediatrician asks them to try saying no to Leon. When Arthur does, Leon starts to cry, and Arthur quickly apologizes, trying to calm his upset son. The pediatrician tells them it's just a test, and soon Leon calms down. The pediatrician, who is calm and attentive, congratulates the couple. She says Leon has reached the right speech and mobility milestones for his age. His mother feels relieved. The pediatrician explains that Leon shows a strong attachment to her, which means he feels secure. However, she also notes that Leon's attachment to Arthur is just average, and this makes Arthur feel a little worried. The pediatrician notices that Leon seems hesitant to seek help or cry when he's with Arthur. As Arthur looks at his son, Leon's eyes meet his with a look of innocence that pulls at Arthur's heart. Arthur admits he has always thought of Leon as a calm baby. The pediatrician suggests that Arthur might need to spend more quality time with Leon to strengthen their bond. She points out that Arthur's habit of trying to make up for his work absences by rushing interactions with Leon might be affecting their relationship. Arthur's wife listens closely, thinking about how small actions can impact their son's development. She apologizes, recognizing that she could have done more to support their family's dynamic. Arthur, being supportive, reassures her as they leave the pediatrician's office. He admits that his worries about balancing work and family life might have influenced their current situation. With a renewed sense of commitment, he suggests they take a walk together, hoping to create more moments to connect and strengthen their family bond. As they walk, the pediatrician asks Arthur's wife to come back for a moment to answer a few more questions. Arthur takes Leon outside while he waits. He watches the families and children playing in the park. Leon, sitting on Arthur's shoulders, giggles and points at the kids. Arthur smiles, lifting Leon higher and enjoying his son's happiness. A group of kids runs up to them, shouting excitedly and calling Arthur handsome uncle. They beg him to play with them, and their energy is contagious. At the same time, Arthur's wife walks back to join them, holding a piece of paper and looking deep in thought. She remembers her recent conversation with the pediatrician. The doctor had mentioned that, even though she seems emotionally stable, there are signs of depression. The doctor suggested that talking about her feelings with Arthur might help, but she decided to keep it to herself, thinking Arthur already has enough to handle. As she gets closer, she decides she will share her struggles when she feels ready. Arthur, still enjoying the moment with Leon, notices her coming and brings Leon closer to her. Leon, thrilled, calls out to her, and Arthur, feeling the tiredness of the day, comments on how much energy kids seem to have. He laughs, realizing how fun and tiring parenting can be. At that moment, a group of moms comes up to Arthur's wife and invites her to join their moms club. She's a bit surprised by the unexpected offer, but smiles politely as she thinks about it. In a crowded area, a woman tells Gwen she looks beautiful. The people around them quickly start admiring Arthur for being so kind and involved with their children. They wish their own partners were as supportive as Arthur. They think Arthur is not only a handsome husband, but also a great dad, and are sure that Leon will be a wonderful older sibling. Arthur smiles at all the praise. Mrs. Morente looks at Arthur with affection and gently touches his hair to comfort him. Leon, curious, reaches out to touch Arthur's hair too. Arthur plays along, and the people around them smile at the scene. When Arthur decides it's time to go home, he suggests they leave. Gwen agrees with a simple, sure. At home, Arthur and Gwen encourage Leon to practice walking. Gwen cheers him on, praising how well he's doing. Arthur notices Leon's improvement and mentions that he has scheduled more lab tests for both of them. He stresses the importance of regular checkups. Gwen promises to support him no matter what, and they share a kiss before getting on with their evening routine. While Leon plays with a ball, a woman with most of her face covered approaches and asks him his name. Leon gets startled, starts crying, and interrupts Arthur and Gwen. Arthur, recognizing her as Malen, reminds her she wasn't supposed to stay. Malen remains unfazed, and Leon, frightened, hides behind Gwen, clutching her skirt. Nana arrives and suggests they have dinner together. Malen agrees and hopes to get closer to her sister-in-law. Arthur is unsure at first but finally agrees. Gwen is happy about the plan and says she'll do her best. During dinner, Gwen asks Malen if she can call her by her first name. Malen agrees, and after the meal, she shows Gwen some old photos of herself with her brother and sister. Gwen finds the photos fascinating and thinks, wow. Malen then asks if Gwen wants to see more. Gwen eagerly says, yes, please, excited to learn more about Arthur's past. Later, Nana asks Arthur why he seems so interested in Malen. Arthur explains that Malen missed their wedding because she didn't agree with their marriage. He tells Nana that Malen didn't approve of him marrying Gwen, which led to an argument and her not coming to the wedding. This helps Nana understand the family tensions better. Gwen is busy looking through Malen's phone, checking out the photos of Arthur and his siblings. She comes across one photo that really catches her attention, but she decides not to say anything about it. Malen notices Gwen's interest and asks her about it. Gwen quickly brushes it off, saying it's nothing important, and just comments on how young Malen looks in the photo. Malen then expresses how sorry she is for missing the wedding. Gwen reassures her, saying it's okay, and that she's glad to finally meet her. Malen seems pleased to finally meet Gwen, and Gwen feels the same way. As they are talking and getting to know each other better, Leon starts calling out for his mother. Arthur comes into the room and suggests that it's time for Malen to head out. Just then, someone bursts into the room and announces that Malen is under arrest. Malen is shocked and quickly tries to leave, asking what's going on. Another person comes in and repeats that Malen is being arrested, confronting her directly. Malen is upset and tries to protest, but Arthur looks relieved. He apologizes to Gwen and asks if Malen has caused her any trouble. Gwen says that Malen hasn't harassed or blackmailed her, but she does feel unsettled by the whole situation. Outside, Malen's sister confronts her, upset that Malen didn't let them know she was coming back. Malen explains that she wanted to surprise everyone, but her sister reminds her that Arthur has moved on and started a new family. Malen thinks about their father's passing and her own role in supporting the family. She feels conflicted about Gwen being part of Arthur's life now. Back at Gwen and Arthur's home, Gwen checks on Leon, who is sleeping peacefully. She feels relieved that he's okay, but is still troubled by Malen's visit. While she's in the hallway, she runs into Nana and shares her worries. Gwen mentions that there are people who just can't accept their family. Nana gives her a comforting hug and tells her that the most important thing is making sure Leon feels loved and supported, which Gwen is doing a great job at. As they are talking, Arthur walks in and asks if he's interrupting. Nana suggests that Arthur and Gwen take some time for themselves and offers to watch Leon. Arthur stands close to Gwen and shows concern about whether Malen's actions might have hurt her. Gwen reassures him that she's okay. Arthur promises they'll talk more about the situation later, saying he thinks he has an idea of why Malen showed up. Arthur sees that Gwen is upset and gently brings it up. He tells her he can tell she's not really okay, even if she says she is. Gwen looks unsure at first but eventually nods, letting Arthur know she's feeling troubled. As he wraps his arms around her, he softly says her name, Gwen, which helps her feel a bit better and more cared for. They then move to the living room and sit close on the couch. Arthur asks her if she's feeling a bit better now. Gwen gives a small nod, saying that she's feeling a little better. Arthur, wanting to lighten the mood, makes a joke about how Leon can be quite emotional sometimes. He quickly realizes that making a joke during a serious conversation might not be the best idea, and apologizes for it, hoping it didn't make things worse. Gwen talks to Arthur about her worries about his sister, Mei-Lin. She feels like Mei-Lin doesn't like her, and this makes her feel upset. Arthur agrees that Mei-Lin has been difficult, but he thinks it's best not to focus on that too much. Gwen's past experiences with people like Camilla make her feel like she's a problem. Even though she knows she should move on from these old issues, this situation is bringing back those old feelings and insecurities. Arthur tries to comfort Gwen by patting her on the head and holding her close. He tells her that her feelings are completely valid, and he's relieved that she's finally talking about her worries. He's happy she feels comfortable sharing her thoughts with him, especially since they are married. Gwen starts to think about how scared she's been to share her feelings with Arthur. She realizes that they don't have to handle everything on their own, and that they should be there to support each other. Gwen looks at Arthur and tells him that she's on his side, no matter what problems come their way. Arthur kisses her gently, and Gwen thanks him for his support. As they hold each other, Gwen thinks about how special it is for her feelings to be acknowledged like this. She realizes how much she values Arthur's understanding and support, and knows she needs to learn more about him. Gwen then brings up Arthur's ex-fiancée, Eliane. Arthur confirms that Eliane was important to him, and that he still thinks about her from time to time. Gwen remembers a photo of Arthur, Eliane, and herself. Seeing the photo makes her question her place in Arthur's life. It brings up doubts and fears about whether she really fits into his life. Arthur reassures Gwen by taking her hand, giving it a kiss, and telling her how important she is in his life. He says that as his wife, she deserves to be there with him. He then gently carries her to the bed and suggests that they focus on each other tonight, leaving behind any past issues. They share a sweet kiss, and Gwen promises to show her love and appreciation for Arthur and Leon every day. She playfully teases Arthur about his growing cheesiness. The next day at Mega Development Corporation, a colleague notices Arthur's good mood and says, "You seem really happy today." Arthur agrees and asks about the day's tasks. The colleague mentions that Arthur has a last-minute meeting scheduled. Two members of the corporation walk in, one with red hair and the other with white hair. Arthur greets the red-haired man, Lance, in a relaxed way. Lance looks annoyed and says, "How many times do I have to tell you to stop calling me that?" The white-haired colleague steps in and tells Lance to calm down because Mr. Moranti, their client, is here. Arthur turns to Mr. Moranti, says it's no problem, and invites everyone into the meeting room. In the office where the meeting is held, Arthur takes a special seat reserved for important discussions. Lance and the white-haired man sit next to him, and the colleague who had noticed Arthur's good mood sits across from them. Lance starts updating Arthur about the ongoing issues with Gwen's half-sister, Mrs. Camellia Cruz, and her husband. Arthur feels relieved when he hears this and notes that he will look over the relevant documents later. Arthur asks Lance if he has looked into the other matter he brought up before. Lance confirms that he has. He then says, "I knew I could count on you, bro." Arthur, a bit annoyed, tells him, "Stop that." Arthur notices something seems off and asks Lance where his glasses are. Lance had accidentally stepped on them, but doesn't mention it. Arthur tells Lance not to be so down about it and tries to lift his spirits. Feeling frustrated, Lance decides to leave the meeting suddenly. The white-haired colleague tries to calm him down, but Lance leaves anyway. After Lance is gone, the initial colleague brings up Arthur's friendliness towards Gwen's ex. He suggests that Arthur's attitude seems a bit harsh. Arthur explains that Gwen's ex and Gwen were never really involved, it was just one-sided. The colleague responds, "You're even harsher than I thought." Arthur then defends Lance, saying that he's a good guy who genuinely cares about Gwen and is helping with an important task. In another scene, Merlin vents her frustration about Gwen being accepted by the family. She doubts Gwen's worthiness and feels unsettled. The woman she's talking to suggests that Merlin should accept the situation since the family has moved on. Merlin remembers Faye's advice and her aunt's warning that only Arthur knows what truly makes him happy. Feeling dissatisfied, Merlin turns back to look out the window. Back at the office, Lance walks down the hallway looking visibly upset. The white-haired colleague calls after him, telling him not to act out in front of clients. Lance admits, "I know, but he really gets on my nerves. I know he's a good guy, but he still annoys me and doesn't take me seriously." The white-haired man points out that Arthur has shown him respect and trust. Lance, still angry, walks away, and the white-haired man reminds him to be careful without his glasses. Merlin, feeling frustrated and upset about Gwen, accidentally bumps into Lance in the hallway. Lance quickly helps her up, showing concern. They share a brief, meaningful look that says more than words could. Back at home, Gwen watches as Leon walks toward her, calling out for her. She feels a deep sense of pride, seeing how much progress he's made. As she reflects on her life, Gwen realizes how important it is to communicate openly with Arthur. She understands now that she needs to share her feelings instead of keeping them hidden away. Just then, Nana hands her a letter with ENJ University written on it. Gwen's eyes widen in surprise and curiosity as she starts to open it, feeling a mix of shock and anticipation. Gwen looks at the letter in her hand, hesitating before she opens it. Nana notices Gwen's hesitation and asks if it's something important. Gwen explains that the letter is from her old university, from before she had Leon. As Gwen starts to read the letter, Nana thinks that Arthur should be more open and direct with Gwen. Arthur walks in, holding his coat. Leon sees him and gets excited, shouting with joy. Arthur then asks Nana if she got the letter, and she tells him she did, sounding excited about it. Before Arthur can say more, Gwen comes out from the room, greets him warmly, and asks if he's home early. Arthur tells her that he's planned a special date night, and suggests they go for a walk and spend some time together. Gwen, curious, asks if there's a special reason for the date. Arthur casually says there isn't any particular reason, he just wants to enjoy their time together. Gwen agrees to change for their date, and Nana says she'll look after Leon, encouraging them to have a great time. As they walk outside, Arthur mentions how long it's been since they had a real date. Gwen agrees and feels a bit guilty, knowing that Arthur is always at home with Leon. Arthur points out that they missed out on many dates because they skipped that part of their relationship. Gwen thinks about this and feels grateful for Arthur's consideration. Arthur then admits that he arranged the letter from her university, and Gwen realizes he was behind it. She tells him that she almost forgot about going back to school and had felt lost without goals beyond being a mother. The letter gave her the push she needed. Arthur hugs her and says, "All for you, honey. You're so sweet. I just want to be close to you." Gwen playfully scolds him, and Arthur reassures her, saying, "This is just a small thing. You've done so much for us. We should keep supporting each other." They head to a jewelry store where Arthur says he envies couples who have matching jewelry or items. Gwen teases him, calling him a hopeless romantic. Arthur points out a piece of jewelry and puts it on Gwen, saying it looks great on her. He then suggests they get matching couple shirts. Gwen thinks it's a bit much, but agrees to think about it. At the checkout, Gwen tells Arthur he'll need to wait while she picks out the design. Arthur agrees, saying, "Yes." As they finish, someone calls out to Arthur. He waves and explains that he's on a date with his wife. Meanwhile, Gwen is choosing a shirt, trying to pick one she thinks Arthur will like and hoping it looks cute on him. Another shopper accidentally bumps into her and quickly apologizes. Gwen stares at the woman in front of her, trying hard to remember where she has seen her before. The memory starts to come back to her. She recalls a time from long ago when someone had knocked on her door. When she opened it, she saw this same woman standing there. The woman had asked if someone else was in the room and then offered to let Gwen have a shirt they both liked, saying she would find something else. Gwen had agreed, but now she's trying to figure out why the woman seems so familiar. She thinks to herself, "Does she not remember me from before? Maybe I'm getting her mixed up with someone else." While Gwen is lost in thought, Arthur is chatting with a doctor he runs into at the store. The doctor looks surprised and happy to see Arthur, saying it's a nice surprise. Arthur explains that he is out on a date with Gwen. The doctor comments that it seems like it's a date night for both of them, and talks about how important it is to make time for each other in a relationship. He mentions that being best friends first is really important. The doctor then apologizes, saying he didn't mean to lecture. He checks his phone and realizes he needs to find his fiancée before she gets upset. He gives Arthur a thumbs up and says he'll see him at their next appointment. Arthur watches the doctor leave, feeling happy with his current life, but also thinking about wanting something more. He wonders if he is being too hard on himself. Gwen comes back and apologizes for taking a while. Arthur asks if she found any nice clothes for their date. He decides to enjoy their time together, and not let his own worries ruin the evening. Arthur mentions that he ran into the doctor, who was talking about something related to urology. Gwen thinks about telling Arthur what happened with the doctor, but decides not to, thinking it might ruin their good mood. At home, they put on matching t-shirts and take a photo together, with Arthur holding the phone to capture the moment. Later, Gwen talks with Carol, who comments on how Gwen managed to get Arthur to wear matching shirts. Carol jokes about how nice it must be to be affectionate, and not get tired at night. Gwen mentions that she ran into her ex-fiancé earlier, but didn't think the woman recognized her. Carol reassures Gwen, saying it's unlikely her ex-fiancé would remember her, and that Gwen is probably overthinking things. She also tells Gwen that Arthur clearly cares more about her than anyone from her past. Carol then asks about Leon and says she misses him. Gwen laughs and thinks to herself that she needs to be stronger and more open about her feelings. Carol wishes Gwen well and reminds her to send greetings to the family. She insists that Gwen should bring Leon with her next time. As Carol is leaving, a man with a scar on his face and wearing shades walks up to Gwen and asks if she's ready. Gwen prefers to just be called Gwen. Carol tells the man to make sure Gwen gets to her destination safely. The man promises he will, while Carol starts imagining a romantic scenario with him, but then shakes off the thought. She tells Gwen to hurry up and not be late for her husband's doctor's appointment. Gwen thinks about how direct Carol is compared to her own struggles with sharing feelings. She decides that she needs to be more straightforward and improve how she expresses herself. If you want to see what happens next, drop a comment, or give a thumbs up expressing your interest in a Season 2, Part 2. Your comments and likes helps determine if you're interested in really seeing the next part. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, ciao.